Terra LUNA is dead, and now Do Kwon faces 2 investigations that could lead to prison time. We have a lot to cover today, so let's jump right in. Okay, so first of all, I want to start out by recapping the kind of validator discussed and general community discussed around the way that this governance vote was launched and the way that the proposal was launched, particularly the Revival 2.0 that has that vote going live. So we have a interview with a Terra validator who kind of spoke out against Do Kwon and actually has an active vote, an active veto against his plan officially in the Terra ecosystem. So a couple of notes from him, which I think I found very interesting that we have highlighted here. So first of all, this is Allnode CEO, Konstantin. And he said, "We didn't like the fact that the whole governance process of this proposal looks like a dictatorship model. It looks like the launch of the new chain is decided even before voting is finished." And a lot of people have been echoing that because of this fact right here, because many in the wider Terra community have expressed concerns. And he went as far as to say that the vote has not been managed and it goes against the decentralized philosophy of crypto entirely. So a lot of people are upset with it right now. You know, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter especially talking about how they rather have a burn. A lot of you guys in the comments were saying, hey, we rather have a buyback and a burn and take that supply down rather than a hard fork. And it seems as though right now, even though, 19.7, and actually it's changed right now if we look at the live voting, but right now about 16% have said no currently, but 19.7% are vetoing the plan as of 2 days ago. If this climbs to more than 33% when the poll ends in a few days, the vote won't pass. And what's interesting is that in a preliminary poll, this would suggest that these votes are a little bit off, but in the preliminary poll on the governance forum for Terra, nearly 7,000 people voted, and 91% of those folks that voted were actually against the fork. But essentially, even with that preliminary poll suggesting that people didn't want it, Do Kwon still went ahead and launched it. So that's kind of where the sour taste in people's mouth, especially the validators, was lying. So Konstantin was saying that 90% of the active community is against the fork, and still the founder pushes his own narrative without listening to his community. And that's kind of been the biggest pushback against Do Kwon. And actually, since this article came out just, a couple days ago, the voting has kind of shifted a little bit. There was a little bit of rumor that Terra influenced the yes votes early, but as more votes came in, we're seeing that 62% have voted yes, 21% have abstained so far, and no with a veto is about 16.36%. Again, remember that if that reaches 33% in the next couple days when that vote ends, then it will not pass. So that's kind of the numbers to be watching for here within the Terra station for the voting metrics. But now that we covered and recap the, validator drama, what's going on with the vote of the new hard fork, let's get into kind of what's going on with Do Kwon here. So if you'll remember, a few Terra Luna videos back, we covered a suspicious rumor that Do Kwon decided to dissolve Terra's Seoul and Busan branches right before that collapse, and this has actually been proven to be true. Now it's been reported on a bunch of different sources. It has also been confirmed by the documents from the South Korean government. So there is a lot of suspicion with that, and we'll get to what Do Kwon actually said in response to that here in a second. But according to the Korean National Tax Service, Kwon is currently under investigation for tax evasion after Luna and UST collapsed due to a corporate and income tax burden of $78.4 million. Now, I don't know if that's what caused the collapse. I think, there's a bunch of different factors. We even talked about maybe a coordinated collapse by extraneous actors, big banks, big investment firms. So I think the jury's out on that. I'm not totally sure that that's what caused the collapse, but it's definitely, an active investigation against Do Kwon for tax evasion. Now, here is the one that really kind of hits home in terms of one that's more serious. So the Financial Crimes Unit in South Korea has actually launched a 48-person investigation made up of 7 prosecutors and other executives from this commission, and they've been called to investigate the methods by which Terraform Labs attracted investors to its tokens. Now, this is really, really important because, as you guys probably know, in crypto, there's very, very fine lines between offering a security, giving investment advice. All of this stuff is very, very particular in terms of securities law with the SEC and a bunch of financial commissions across the world within different countries, and in this case South Korea. And particularly what I'm assuming they're referencing, because this is something that Terra actually got pushback on before, is a lot of these DeFi applications, particularly Anchor, they essentially advertise this as a stable savings account, when in reality they can't technically advertise it like that, because this isn't a bank, this isn't a financial institution, this is a cryptocurrency project that is not stable at all. It turns out that it's the opposite of stable, and so I think a big portion of this investigation boils down to how they marketed Anchor, other projects, other DeFi projects that led to people having to purchase Luna, because you had to purchase Luna here, UST, and then stake it in Anchor to then receive those rewards. So in turn, it was a way to attract investors to offer this savings account. Now, whether he can legally do that, that's kind of what they're investigating him for. And this would be a very, very serious crime. That could definitely lead to jail time, as well as a tax evasion number of 78.4 million. We're going to get into what Do Kwon is saying in response to this here in just a moment, but you guys just got to keep in mind those are serious allegations, serious investigations being launched against him. If these come out to be true, he will face jail time. These are serious crimes, so definitely be wary if you are still considering investing in Luna right now. The last thing I wanted to note is that there were some really big wins and really big losses within this whole debacle, and so the ones that won, particularly this company, Pantera Capital, have kind of come under some heat, basically because of their timing. So Pantera Capital had an exit of 170 million from a $1.7 million initial investment, and it came basically it finalized recently, so before the crash, decently before the crash, but within the last year, and they pulled out of 80% of its investments in Luna over the last year. So very interesting to see that. I think they had a rather okay response. They said they kind of managed having such a high upside position that they wanted to kind of de-risk a little bit and take some of that out. So a decent response, but at the same time, a lot of these companies are under suspicion because of the timing of their exits. So just another thing that might start cropping up in the next few weeks, as investigations go underway with Do Kwon, will there be links to other companies? That's something that we always need to keep in mind. So the next thing I want to cover is kind of Do Kwon's response to the liquidation, some of the investigations that he's under, and kind of what his response has been. So he said that the shutdown of Terra's office in Korea was entirely coincidental and it had nothing to do with Terra's accident. And so he stated that he's been in Singapore since December of last year and that it was a personal decision that has been long planned. So he said that it takes time to wind down a corporation and the timing was just coincidental. So he's been working on this winding down of these different areas of Luna in Korea. And he said he's been doing that over, the course of the last few months. So definitely an interesting response. Whether you believe it's coincidental, totally up to you. I think eventually, as these investigations kind of take place, we'll probably know more. But Do Kwon, in response to kind of the tax evasion allegations, he said that the National Tax Service of South Korea had undertaken a tax audit of the company and that the company, along with others, had paid its taxes in full. So he also stated that Terra's predicament was not unique and other crypto businesses may be affected. So, again, whether you believe that or not, totally up to you. Just, he's basically denying that there was any tax evasion. He's saying they're complying with the tax audit. They've paid all their taxes. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of the investigation coming up here in the next couple weeks. So the last few things I want to touch on here is just one more interesting tidbit that came out yesterday was the Luna Foundation Guard advisor says Do Kwon hasn't reached out since UST crash. Now, this is really, really interesting because if you follow him on Twitter, he's kind of had this narrative of they're working hard, they're working as a team, they're building the community as a community. And so for the Luna Foundation Guard, who they're supposed to keep in close communication with, who holds a lot of these funds, a lot of people's funds, you know, to say that they haven't communicated is definitely a red flag and definitely something to watch out. So, Karas, who is one of the advisors at LFG, he said the truth is he found his information out about the situation on Twitter like everyone else. So that means that obviously there was not much communication going on. And this is kind of the antithesis of what Do Kwon was essentially implying. You know, I don't know if he exactly said, hey, I communicated directly with LFG, but it's implied when he's saying that he's doing all this work to get things back on track. If you're not talking with the treasury of your project, that's really interesting, because does that say that you're actually trying to work and bring this back for the community? So I think this is another big red flag, and wanted you guys to be aware of this if you hadn't seen this yet. And the last thing, which we actually alluded to in one of my previous Luna videos, was there are a ton of chains coming after Terra Luna developers. Terra Luna has a ton of talented developers, a ton of amazing DeFi applications, and other ecosystems that live inside Terra. So a lot of talented developers and a lot of groups and projects that other chains would want. So here's just an example. You know, we've seen Polygon, we've seen VeChain come directly after these Terra Luna developers, but now we're also seeing the BNB Chain Fund offering $1 billion in investment and grants to prospective projects looking to operate within the BNB chain ecosystem. So now this team is committed to supporting projects migrating from the Terra ecosystem, and will provide added network tokenomics and marketing support, as well as business development. So they are basically throwing the kitchen sink at all of these Terra groups, offering not just money, but also heavy guidance. And Binance is one of the most well-respected, well-run projects in the space. So definitely a serious value prop here. I think that we will see a lot of Luna projects bail on Terra Luna, especially once this vote kind of closes, and we'll see whether, you know, people actually end up staying on Terra Luna and sticking it out, or whether they go to something like a Binance, VeChain, or Polygon. And so I think this is just a great thing to point out, because we're going to start seeing this more often. And I think this is one of the big reasons why Terra Luna will likely not come back, and that it's why it's likely dead, is because people are poaching their developers left and right. And, you know, on top of everything, on top of the scams, the investigations, you know, it's really hard to see it making a comeback. But that's what I have prepared for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Let me know what other projects you'd like me to cover. But thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.